Everybody, welcome to Journey 2. Let's do that again. Mark, you'll edit that one out. All right, everybody, welcome to Personal Mastery Training. Like the name says, it's about personal mastery. It's about this idea that I don't think you should get through life. I think you should get from life. And since my days of being competitive sports, my mindset was the only thing that separated me from what I wanted. So I knew later on in my life, I wanted to dive into this and figure out, how do I control that 3-pound mass between my ears? So that's what, because I know if I master my inner game, the outer game doesn't matter, because the outer game changes all the time. But if I can master my inner game, that is what this is all about. So it's personal mastery and training. It's a every day. It's a progress. We move towards this idea of mastery of ourselves. And I do 2 episodes, as you know, if you're a listener. If it's your first time, I do 2 episodes. I do a strategy session where I talk about ideas that my clients are going through, that I'm going through, and I want you to dissect it. I want you to, my group, we're like modern day philosophers. We just dissect things. If you can agree with me, disagree with me, but dive in. I just want you to think. And the second one I do is today's podcast, which is a master class. And this is someone I have seen, an author, a presenter, or anyone I've seen, an athlete who looks like they're on their game. They're doing their thing. They're never arrived, but they're working and they're putting in the work every single day. And this is one person that I met not long ago, but it seems like I've known her for a long time, because she was a real deal and she's done quite a bit. So let me just do a quick intro here, and I'm pleased and blessed to have her on here. So Gina Hatsis. So Gina is an award-winning corporate and public speaker. She's a founder and visionary of Too Much Woman movement. She was named top inspirational speaker by Speaker Slam in 2021, Woman of the Year by Soulful Image magazine in 2019, Speaker of the Year by Dynamo Speaking. Gina shared the stage with many world-class speakers: Elizabeth Gilbert, Lisa Nichols, Glennon Doyle, Dr. Christian Northrup, and many more. She has also 2 viral videos that amassed 50 million views. So that's Gina in a quick nutshell, but we're going to dive in a bit more and find out. Gina, thanks so much for being on the podcast. So happy to have you here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm so
Awesome.
excited to talk to you and your people. Hey, people.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. So everybody, if you go on and watch Gina on her, and I advise you to do that, tune on her daily. Gina continues to give. She's just out there giving value every single day. All her posts are her being vulnerable, or her dropping some serious wisdom. And you can tell Gina, she's working towards finding more of every time and I've been watching her for a few months now, and it just seemed like she's unfolding even more. Every time I see her, there's new ideas, new unfoldment, and inspiring everyone to kind of become more of who they are. So Gina, that's you now. Tell us more about your journey now, and then we'll go backwards from there. What are you up to now?
So now that things are starting to shift in
Mm-hmm.
2022, I'm excited to be going back on a mini tour. Right before the pandemic, I had
Mm-hmm.
just finally broken into Europe. And so I was on the second year of my tour and very excited to be
Mm-hmm.
in Paris when the whole world stopped.
Right.
And so I've spent the past 2 years really folding into myself,
Mm-hmm.
which of course is, most of us have experienced is pretty confronting. Like
Yeah.
here I am, celebrating and going out and speaking to the world, and then you're confronted with yourself 24/7.
Yeah.
And it was scary and also an incredible opportunity to crack even deeper into me. And I love that you
Mm-hmm.
said in the beginning that, we're like this ever ever unfolding work in progress. People are always
Mm-hmm.
saying to me, I'm still working on it. I'm not there yet. Gosh, when you're done, you're
Hmm.
dead. So that's where I am.
Amen.
I'm in the
Amen.
place where, yeah, I'm going back out there, but these past few years have been a reckoning for me and
Mm-hmm.
really have gone deeper. So I'm excited to get back out there and show and
Yeah.
share and have more conversations about how we've all changed and evolved.
Now, speaking of that, before we, dive any deeper, think about what was it March that you got shut down
Yeah.
as well? Was it around then as well? Think about March and roll it forward. That was 2020, and roll it forward to now 22. How are you coming? How's the Phoenix? What did you learn over those 2 years? I mean, there's tons, but let's give me three or two things that you just really, wow, like the tablet. You're coming out with the tablets in your hand, the
Yeah.
commandments.
Oh man. Well, I'm writing another book on because there's so much.
Hmm.
But top three. Let me see what just comes up for me. First thing that comes up is we need one another.
Mm. Yeah.
I my journey was I've been a 26-year speaker,
Hmm.
and it wasn't until the past 5 years when everything really skyrocketed and went crazy with
Yeah.
viral video. And what I've learned is for all of us who are in the pursuit of mastery,
Hmm.
and as we evolve, we are ever evolving. What we'll find is it does get lonely as we evolve. It can get lonely as we
Hmm.
evolve. And
Yeah.
so, as we are evolving and we're bettering ourselves and we're growing and we're stretching and we're expanding and it does get lonelier at the top. And
Hmm.
that's not necessarily a bad thing, truly, but we need one another. And so it's important as you're going through your evolution that you continue to surround yourself with people who not only are where you're at and have the same ideas, values, but also who are just a little bit ahead so that you can
Hmm.
stay inspired. And so that was really profound for me because, I've always kind of been a fairly fiercely independent, and I have a team and all that. I have people I love, but
Hmm.
it's always been like me just banging it out and
Yeah.
realizing how much I really do need people
Yeah.
and community and a safe place. So that's probably the biggest part.
Hmm.
Number two, and we'll talk about this today, one of the things that I get asked to talk about most often is confidence. And I think we have a really warped idea of what confidence really is. Confidence is so potent. If you're in the pursuit of mastery, confidence is where you can really dip into your courage, your risk taking, how do we ever move forward without some sense of confidence? But most of us don't actually know what I didn't know, what
Hmm.
true confidence is. And I hope that we talk about that. So that's a lot of the content that I'll be sharing on the next leg of my tour is
Hmm.
what true confidence is and how to grow those roots. Because
Yeah.
without those roots, you have a pandemic, you have a death, you have a loss, you have a sickness, you have a separation, and we just fall apart. So how do you grow true roots of confidence? And I want to
Hmm.
circle back to that.
Hmm.
And I think the third thing is and I've always talked about this, but I understand it in a new way, to prioritize pleasure.
Mm.
For those of us who are hungry for a better life or more self-awareness or whatever, fill in the blank, whatever your listeners are juicing for, whatever you're chasing and desiring, that's wonderful.
Hmm.
Understand how important it is to have harmony. I don't like the word balance so much because it implies like equal, but harmony means you can be hungry, you can chase, you can work hard, but make sure that you are prioritizing pleasure. If
Hmm.
you are working hard for something, we've got to ensure that there is pleasure in our day to day, like things that really fuel us. And oftentimes, people who are really hungry, I've been in the personal development world for over 25 years, people who are really hungry, we forget, we're so focused on the end, what we want to get, that we forget to live in the journey and
Yeah.
find pleasure in the journey. So
Absolutely.
right off the cuff, those are pretty big ones for me.
Those are great ones. Let's go back then
Yeah,
and talk about. Let's go right into your post this morning was on confidence. Was it this morning or yesterday? Which one?
pretty much every day.
But there was one specifically on that hit me this morning on confidence. I
Okay,
think you're talking about on confidence,
okay.
and but it made me go to a word that I often use, which is courage.
Mm,
So let's talk about it then. Let's dive in because it was so the post you posted was about the idea of defining confidence. So I'll paraphrase because this is where I would go with courage. Courage for me is not sometimes we think of courageous people as people in the war, people are jumping out of planes, or people are doing dangerous things. But courage for me is speaking who you are, showing up as yourself. If you're an artist, paint. If you're a singer, sing. that takes more courage than jumping out of a plane. So I
Mhm.
think, paraphrasing, I think this morning you mentioned something about defining confidence as not this sexy thing, but it's just doing the simple things like honoring yourself.
Yeah. I think the most courageous thing, I work with men and women. The most courageous thing
Mhm.
is showing up, truly showing up as yourself. Now, it sounds very like pie in the sky. What does that mean? Like being able to literally say, not only these are all the incredible things about me, but this is the good, the bad, and the ugly. And daring to allow yourself to show that card and be uncomfortable in that space. That's the most courageous thing. And most of us are really challenged doing that. And the reason we're challenged doing that, this will circle back to confidence, is because naturally we are biologically wired for acceptance, love, and belonging. This is just who we are. So,
Yeah.
as children, what we learn very early on from 0 to 7, those formative years, is that if I do this, mom takes away her love. She doesn't hug me, she doesn't smile, she doesn't, she sends me to my room, she speaks sternly at me, I get punished. If I do this, dad gives me that look of disappointment. And so we learn early on to start to morph who we are, how we show up, our feelings, and what is true for us in order to get the response that we want. We're so smart that way, right? We're like, I'm just going to be a little more this and a little more that, and I'm just going to adapt and adopt so I can get the love and belonging that I want.
Mhm.
So that's really smart. And
Yeah.
I did that, like I was on point with that. Like I
Mhm.
learned I was a very perceptive kid. And so I learned very early on, oh, this makes mom happy, this doesn't. This gets the approval, this doesn't. And
Mhm.
so when it's a mask really, and most of us are so masterful, we don't even know we're doing it. So we get to a point in our adult years where we're still performative in our relationships. We just learn to prioritize how other people feel, what other people think, and we do it so well that we don't even know that we're doing it. We call it things like people pleasing, or we call it things like caring for someone, rescuing someone, loving someone, being a romantic, like whatever. We use
Mhm.
this wonderful language because we're justifying it. But
Mhm.
here's what happens, and this is probably the most important part.
Yeah.
What happens is every single time we swallow what's true for us, our
Mhm.
needs, because we don't want to be seen as needy, our emotions, because we don't want to look like we can't handle ourselves, our desires or our dreams, because we don't want to be laughed at, whatever it is, whenever we swallow that and we don't speak it, we betray ourselves and we break our self trust. And the reason that is so dangerous is because self trust equals confidence.
Mhm.
The degree to which you trust yourself is how confident you are.
Yeah.
So when we keep breaking our own hearts, are breaking our trust with ourselves, betraying ourselves, our confidence goes down. And of course, courage is impacted when you're not confident. And
Mhm.
so that's really the work that I'm doing right now is how do we build those roots of self trust?
I love it. I love it. So a couple things I wrote here that came to mind. One, Jim Rohn, one of my favorite speakers, passed away a few years ago, but he said, "We don't get shoved off course because we notice that. We get nudged off course."
Mm,
So, which is what you're saying. Every day when we do these pleasing actions, we're getting nudged. Before you know it, we're way off course in who we really are.
absolutely.
And so, this point you brought up also confirms for me why we need to go on a mastery journey, a personal mastery journey. Because by the time you wake up out of this nudging and you go, I'm not even close to who I am. I'm not behaving like who I am. I'm so far off track that we have to go on this hero's journey, this personal mastery
Right.
quest to find ourselves again. And lastly, the third thing you brought up for me is how human beings in our minds, and you brought up point number one earlier, where we need people, we're social beings. That's how we survived. So when we get ostracized from our group, it means death in our minds. So we tend to not want to be ostracized. So we conform, so we can stay in the group. So you brought up a lot of great points for me on my own journey as well.
And I want to emphasize something that you said that's so good because that point that we get to And I
Mhm.
don't think it's actually a point in our timeline. Like we wake up one day and we're like, oh, I'm out of alignment. It's a
Mhm.
series of mini points, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, we call it a midlife crisis. We
Mm.
get to a point, maybe it's our 30s, maybe it's our 40s, maybe it's our 50s, doesn't matter when it is, but there's a point somewhere where we don't even recognize ourselves in the mirror, where we wake up in a life where we've made all the right decisions, but we're unfulfilled and unhappy. And it's confusing because
Mhm.
it's like, oh, wait, I did the thing that I was told to do. I've checked the boxes,
Yeah.
and that's what happened to me. I woke up in my 30s and I thought, I got everything. Like I am blessed.
Mhm.
And yet there's this deep part of me that was so unhappy and unsettled. And then so what you do is you heap the guilt on top of that. Because
Mhm.
shame on me for not being happy. I'm so lucky, or I
Yeah.
have all these things, but it can't be ignored. So what happens is either we unravel internally and we
Mhm.
become very anxious and depressed or forlorn because we don't want to confront the truth, or we ravel externally. And we
Mm.
see a lot of people do that in midlife where we start, we're unfaithful, or we start to sabotage our dream, or there's many ways
Mhm.
we do that.
Yeah.
And so that the midlife, I call it the midlife awakening,
Mhm.
is where you actually confront the truth and you're like, damn, all of this time I've been living this way out of integrity with myself. What am I going to do about it now so that the next part of my life is awakened and in truth?
So before your 30s, tell me about Gina before Gina got her nudge and her wake up call. Tell me how you were still playing
Yeah.
the role.
Yeah. It's great because everyone tells a sad story. I don't have a sad story to tell. I mean, I could tell it in a sad way, but
Right.
here's the truth. I learned very early on how to make my way in the world so that people liked me and I was successful. I compromised myself, but I got so much affirmation. So I was the valedictorian. I was the one who was knocking it out of the park. I was a global speaker at the age of 21. I was the top of my game. I was a journalist at CP24 here in Toronto. I mean, I
Mhm.
was married, I had two kids, beautiful home, traveling the world. I had
Mhm.
all of everything that looked so good on paper because
Mhm.
I was masterful at betraying myself. And everybody, I got so much great affirmation. So, you might look at that and say, but what's wrong with that? Well, what was wrong with that was I was so out of integrity with myself. So this is my too much woman story is
Mhm.
I was told my whole life I was too much. I was too wild, too sensitive, too emotional, too loud, too bold. I mean, the list goes on. And so over my life, learned to morph myself, even in the speaking world. You got to understand when I started as a speaker at 19, 20 years old with Brian Tracy back in the day,
Mm.
there weren't a lot of young 19-year-old women in a
Mhm.
sea of like 50-year-old white men in suits. So
Mhm.
here I was in an industry where it was really hard to make my bones. So what I did, which I thought was so smart, was, well, I'm going to tame down the fact that I'm a young, vibrant 20-year-old. And I would bind my breasts. I would wear pantsuits. Like I would man up, literally look like a man. I'd wear pantsuits buttoned to the top, no heels, like flat, like really pull all my hair back. I bought fake glasses. I still don't wear glasses. Fake glasses to look as much as I could the part so I would be accepted. And guess what, Alvin? Here's the thing. It worked. That's
Mhm.
the problem. Society, it works because that's
Mhm.
what they want. So
Yeah.
I got a lot of success. I did very well as a speaker because I played the role. But here's the thing. I had external success, but internally, I was miserable. I was so unhappy and I couldn't marry the two. And so for me, the too much woman, which is the story, the video that went viral, it's the story of me realizing that despite all of that, what was more important to me was to show up in my too muchness, show up
Mhm.
fully as Gina, no matter what the repercussions were.
Right.
And luckily for me, the repercussions were very positive, but I was committed to just being more myself and let the cards fall where they may.
Mhm. I love it. I love it. And so we're going to talk about confidence, courage. When you had the awakening, by the way, what caused you to not want that anymore? I mean,
Yeah.
you were checking the boxes. What would,
Yeah.
and then, so from that, what caused you to wake up to this? And what then, how did you develop the courage to do 180, I guess, or 90 or 180, or,
Mm-hmm.
what was that drive?
There were two things that happened. One was I had a pivotal moment that I talk about in my speech where it was one of the biggest conferences. I was the only female speaker, and I worked so hard. I was so committed to like killing it, and I did. So on the stage, killed it, got a standing ovation. I was like, I am a boss. I am such a boss. And I started walking to the parking lot feeling like I really proved something. I proved in a sea of men, the audience was 90% men, it was a manufacturing industry. I
Mm-hmm.
proved in a sea of men that I had something of value to bring, that my voice was important as a woman, that I could still contribute, all of these things. And I
Mm-hmm.
floated off that stage. I felt like $1,000,000. And I was walking to the parking lot, and someone from the audience approached me, a gentleman. And I thought he was going to talk to me about my speech. I had, in true fashion, pulled all my hair back. I had my fake glasses. I was in like this business suit. And he grabbed me by the elbow in the parking lot and he pulled me close. And I still remember this. I had goosebumps. And he said, I have a fetish for librarian types.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was, I don't actually remember what happened immediately after that. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, I blinked out. But the reason it was so pivotal, because once I got in the car, I just lost it. Just everything, the tears. I remember driving on the 400 here in Toronto on the highway, all the windows down, the tears. I pulled out my hair, I whipped off my glasses, and I just thought, even when I play by the rules, even when I play by the rules, I'm not respected. Like I'm not given. I'm still seen. I'm still objectified. I'm still seen as less than. So you know what? F this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just show up fully as me. And I'd rather be me and disrespected. I'd rather be me, like fully me,
Mm-hmm.
and show up that way because I needed to be in integrity with me. That was a
Mm-hmm.
defining moment for me, for
Mm-hmm.
real. And it wasn't the first time. It was just the
Mm-hmm.
breaking point. I had so many times when, so that was a huge point for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but during that journey, I was really confronted with the fact that I was doing a lot of speaking about, living your best life. I had a show called Ignite a Life You Love that was broadcasting in over 70 countries, and I was talking to like the best of the best, and I felt like such an imposter because I was
Mm-hmm.
so unhappy.
Right.
So, uh, and I'm sure a lot of viewers, I know this is true because I hear it all the time. It's like everything looks good, but something's wrong. Something's wrong. So when you ask what it was a series of events, but certainly a few of them just like tipped me over the top. I'm like, that's it. So
Mm-hmm.
when you ask me what did I actually do, I hit rock bottom is what I did.
Yeah.
I hit rock bottom, and in secret. um, I call it my come to Jesus moments. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
like one come to Jesus, it was like a series where like I'm on the bathroom floor hugging the toilet bowl and I'm like, talk to me, tell me, like,
Mm-hmm.
and you hear these stories of like God speaking to you saying, you're my child, here's what you need
Mm-hmm.
to do. Like
Yeah.
nobody spoke to me. I'm like, hello, I gotta make dinner at 5. Like, where you
Mhm.
at? Right? Like,
Exactly.
where you
Exactly.
at, God? But it
Uh-huh.
was a series of those moments of like just the bottom falling out. And
Yeah.
as the bottom fell out, and there's somebody who's listening to this that needs to hear this. As
Mm-hmm.
the bottom is falling out and my world is falling apart, and I can no longer hold up the facade. Like it was like going downhill. It was like, shit, I can't even fake this anymore. It just started to unravel. As that was happening, I was building my root system because the less I was acting and the more I was just like letting it go,
Mm-hmm.
letting everything fall apart, I started to build my self trust. I started to realize that it was better to speak the truth, even if it was just to me, and start to trust myself. And that was the pivot point.
Yeah.
So that truly is the pivot point, building your self trust.
So right now, so I'm thinking listeners are listening. One thing I'm picking from this is when you're going through it and it's really deep and painful, would you say trust, even if you don't believe it or see it yet, trust that if you allow surrender to the moment, it is building your root system? And for you, what does that look like for someone? What does that feel like for someone? What did that feel like for you when you had the epiphany that I'm building a root system?
Yeah. I didn't have the epiphany then, I had the epiphany
Mm,
after. That's why I
okay.
teach it now, because in the moment, I couldn't see it. I couldn't
Right.
see it.
Yeah.
You raise an important point. It's not, you know, a lot of people say surrender, trust, and it sounds so beautiful,
Mm,
but I'll tell you in that moment, nobody wants to
mm,
hear that. It's like
yeah.
just it's like a big finger. Just
Right.
leave me alone because
Yeah.
I don't trust this. So
Yeah.
here's what I'm gonna say. The
Hmm.
antidote or the way to the path to building the self-trust is active. It's not passive. You know, surrender feels very passive. It feels like I'm just gonna sit here and accept that no, 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 no. How do you like that'll make you crazy, right? Like it'll just make you crazy because you're sitting and waiting. And so I teach active self-trust building principles. Like how do we actively, practically build self-trust in the moment? So that's what it's important to take action to build self-trust. And I want to say this. I want to just define self-trust if I could, Alvin, because I think
Hmm.
we don't like a lot of people think self-trust means I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to see it all the way through. I'm going to push through my fear. I'm going to do the thing. I'm going to stand on the stage. I'm going to write the book. I'm going to go for the thing, whatever it is. And that's not self-trust. Self-trust, I'm going to define it right here, is the assured reliance that no matter what, I will have my own back. Not if it's successful. I'm not like that it doesn't matter what the outcome is. Assured reliance that I will have my own back. So I'm going to do this thing and no matter what, I'm going to take care of me. That's self-trust. It's not knowing it's all going to work out. It's not knowing that if I write the book, people are going to love it. If I take the stage, it's going to be a success. If I go on this health journey that I'm going to lose all the weight. It's the self-trust happens day to day in the daily actions. And that's the shift that takes place. That's what I teach.
Yes. And if someone's, other than taking the course, and you're going to tell us where they can start, but active
Yeah.
self-trust, how do they find, so you're in this darkness
Yeah.
and the light isn't there, the way isn't there for them. It's so
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
How do they, what's the first move? It's
Okay.
active. Other than getting the
Yeah.
roadmap, the blueprint
Yeah.
that you'll give them, what do they
Yeah.
do?
Okay. I'm so excited to talk about this because here's the thing.
Mhm.
Number one, it's not linear. There's not, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's the really good news. What there is there's like a pool of things that you could do. So let me drop a couple nuggets and you,
Mhm.
as a listener, you pick up, if you want to pick up what I'm putting down, great. It's
Mhm.
just find what resonates with you. But I
Yeah.
teach a whole bunch of stuff because you have to, it's different for everybody. So I'm going to give you a couple nuggets. Okay. How do
Yeah.
you build self-trust? I'm going to drop a couple bombs real quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
Number one is do more of what you like and that you're good at. Do more of what you like and what you're good at. A lot of people in the personal growth industry, and I taught this, they teach you to look at where you drop the ball, look at your weakness, look at the things that you're not so good at and strengthen those. Fix this part of you. If you go to school and you get a bunch of A, Bs on your report card, and then you get a D in math, what do? They have you focus on the math, get a tutor, do extra work, like focus on the thing that you're not, instead of saying, oh, this kid is amazing at creative writing, get him a tutor for his creative writing. Let him focus on the thing that lights him up. Let him build his confidence by giving him some juice and energy to focus on the things that he loves. If you work for a company or a boss, you get an annual performance review, same thing. Alvin, you're a team player, you're confident, you get work on time, but this one area, not so good. Why don't you take a course, read a book, fix this thing? What is it about us that feels like we have to be like perfect all the way around? So we focus so much on the detriment. And
Mhm.
even as a business owner, I focus for so many years on the things that I'm not good at, like the finances, the marketing, that like, oh no, man, I need to focus on my zone of genius. Confidence and self-trust is built when I'm focusing on the thing that I like to do and that I'm good at.
Mhm.
And so I either try to get other people to do it, the hard stuff, or like I hire people, or I create a system where I'm doing less of it. But I spend focused time every day doing what I love and what I'm good at, and that builds my
Mhm.
self trust muscle. Like,
Mhm.
look, so that's, I could talk on an hour about that, because we're also focused on the parts that aren't working, but that's a big one.
Yep.
Number two is prioritize your truth over goodness. Now let me break that down. This is very practical in day to day. Most of us override what's true for us in the name of being likable or good.
Yep.
Okay? We're just in a habit of doing that. So most, and I know this is true for women especially, we're like, I'd rather be seen as a good woman, a good person, a good wife, a good mother, than actually speaking up for what I need. And so every day, literally check the box before your head hits the pillow. Did I today, or in what ways today, did I prioritize the truth of how I feel, what I want, what I need, over just being seen as a good person? It's very practical. It's the hardest thing to do because we're affirmed for being good. Nobody affirms us for standing up for ourselves.
Yep.
Nobody like says, "Good job, Alvin, for speaking your truth," right? Like,
Mhm.
so that's a whole day in and of itself, a whole class
Yeah.
in and of itself.
Yep.
Um, I know you want me to keep going. I've got so many.
Yeah, if you got
Okay.
one more, if you got just
Okay.
3,
Um,
the 3rd one.
Okay, this one I'm gonna throw a curveball that maybe nobody's heard before, because
Mhm.
I want to give you something to chew on,
Yeah.
your listeners to chew on. Many of us are obsessed with, when it comes to decision making, right and wrong, right and wrong. What's the right decision? What's the wrong decision? I want you to park the idea that there's a right and wrong. Most people who don't trust themselves are obsessed with the idea of rightness, of what's the right best decision. So again, self-trust isn't about the outcome, it's not about the end. Check in with yourself, make a decision that feels good to you, and
Yeah.
then trust that as you go through the process, you will be there for you. Because we get stuck in this analysis paralysis. Many of us, especially those of us who are committed to excellence, we don't ever want to drop the ball. We don't ever want to fail. But you got to understand, self-trust is built not when you achieve the weight, or you win the medal, or you come out on top, you write the book, you that's not self-trust and confidence. You don't get it from that. How many of you have had a goal, you reach the goal, and then for like 5 seconds you're celebrating, you're like, yeah, this feels so good. 2 seconds later, the brain's looking for the next thing. So we
Yep.
never actually get confident or self-trusting by achieving anything. So the goal isn't to make the right decision, get rid of right and wrong. I want you really to be committed to showing up for yourself every single day.
Mhm.
That's way more important. Way
Yeah.
more important.
Okay, love it. Love it. So, recap. Those who are listening deeply and looking for those nuggets. Number 1, you're in a dark space and you're frustrated in your life, and that's a lot of people right now. You might be going through midlife, you might have
Oh,
gone
yeah.
through some trauma in your life right now, and you're lost. Number 1, do focus on more of what you're great at. Do more of that. Celebrate your strengths and really look at ways you can boost those. And Gina, would you say when you start doing that, I don't want to
Yeah.
assume your idea, your concept here, but when you start doing that, would that even boost your quote unquote weaker areas? Or like let's say math. Okay, let's use your when you said math. If you're
Yeah.
not, but you're good at creative writing, would if you were to blow up creative writing and become good at it,
Yeah.
then it actually gives you a chance to be open and remove blocks that you may be having around math,
Yeah.
around having that, and then looking again at math if you need to do it
Yeah.
with an open eye, with a bit more confidence. Would you say that?
Oh, 100% they bleed into one another.
Mhm.
When we spend, just think of a kid who doesn't, math, they just don't like it. They
Yeah.
just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And they see all the, a bunch of other kids thriving.
Right.
I've been there. Like, you sit there and it does not compute. And so your self-trust, your motivation, your courage, your faith, all of this stuff starts to diminish.
Yeah.
And then try to get that kid to go write a creating writing story. Like,
Mhm.
you're depleted, right? So the
Yeah.
inverse is true. So what if we took more time focusing on the things, not just that we're good at, but things that we like? I think it's
Mhm.
important to, even if you're not good at it, but you like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Even, I'm not a good painter. Do
Yeah.
I like, what are you, I'm not a good singer, but I love to sing. If you get in a car
Mhm.
with me, I'm there will
Mhm.
be a show.
Mhm.
Like Beyonce's
Mhm.
coming out. I'm not a
Mhm.
good singer, but it feels good to me.
Right.
And what, our lives, especially for top performers who are probably listening to your podcast, our lives are so focused on getting good and better at
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like mastery isn't just the getting the better.
Mhm.
Mastery is actually being in a zone of harmony with yourself. I'm not a good singer. I'm never going to be a singer, but I love to sing. And
Mhm.
isn't that a mark of success? And
Yeah.
if I'm doing that more, yes, to your point, isn't
Mhm.
that going to make me better at the other things? It's going to have me maybe not be better at it, but because that's not the goal, but it's
Mhm.
going to have me show up differently
Yeah.
in those
Show up
other
differently.
places.
That's
And
huge.
that everybody wins, right?
That's huge. Show up differently.
Yeah,
While if you feed what you're not good at, you're gonna show up differently too and not
that's it.
explore the
That's
rest, your
it.
strengths.
That's
Love
it.
it. And number two is prioritize your truth over goodness. Start looking at that. And part number three is, again, if you're in that dark space, stuck, not knowing how to even get going,
Yeah,
those one, two, and three is park the idea of right and wrong. Show up as your true self
right.
and strip yourself of what society told you should be, what the conditioning,
Yeah.
basically.
When we're in a dark place, we're obsessed with what do I need to do to fix this? And then we never make a decision because we can't decide what the right thing is because we're in that dark space. So what I'm saying to you is pick the least, if there's a bunch of sucky options, pick the least sucky and take action. You've got, that's how we build self-trust. So you've got three options. None of them feel like the right option. Pick the least sucky option and move in the direction of that. When
Yeah.
you're in a dark place, the worst thing to do is just nothing
Yeah.
because as we know, like we can't build off nothing.
That's right. The
Yeah,
body in motion,
that's it.
right? Stays.
Stays in motion.
Love
Stays
it.
in,
Love it.
yeah.
And so, Gina, let's talk about then, to bring everything around. What are you doing right now? What are the programs you're doing right now to empower women? Who's your audience, by the way?
Mm, mm.
And what do you have out there for people to help them change and so on?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking. I teach a weekly masterclass. Um, that's that's one of the things that beautiful things that came out of the pandemic because I
Virtual?
wasn't on tour. It's
You're
virtual,
virtual?
so anybody
Okay.
can join. It's a
And
virtual.
live? Do you do live events still too?
I still do. So
Okay.
I've got a calendar that will be coming out shortly. I'll be in New York City in October. I'm going to be in LA. I've got a whole bunch of new stuff coming out. I have Toronto events coming. So yes, the calendar is coming out. Things are going on sale very quickly. I do one-on-one mentorship, select, and right now those are and then I have my course, which will be coming out in 2 weeks, the official
Love it.
course,
Love it.
the confidence building with all the self-trust principles. That's coming out in 2 weeks.
Love it. You're coming out roaring.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go.
roaring. Phoenix rising from the ashes.
Thank you.
And do you have a specific demographic of people that you
You
love
know,
working with, or do you get everybody in?
it's really, I love when people ask me this question because people
Mhm.
always think, what's your niche? What's your thing? And what I found with the Too Much, I'm going to answer that in two parts. What I found with the Too
Yeah.
Much Woman is I was blown away because the Too Much Woman is about a woman who's too much, right?
Mhm.
I'm thinking. But
Yeah.
I literally heard from 13-year-old boys, 70-year-old priests. I mean, I've heard from people across the spectrum. I'm surprised at who follows my work, quite frankly. So I'm very careful not to say this isn't for you
Mhm.
because what we're really talking about is how to show up as your most you. So I will say that. However, I'd say most of the people that follow me are usually between 30 and 60. A lot of women because I talk about a lot of women's issues, and that's probably the demographic right now.
Yeah, I think although you talk about women's issues, what you're really talking about is truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's based on what you've gone through as a woman, but it's truth. It's
Yeah.
it's if you get away from the genders, and it's truth. It's just, yeah, it's just specific to your journey being female, but it's truth. If I get rid of just the label, it's something I need to hear. And yeah, so it's getting to truth, your own true self.
Yeah.
So so I love that. And where can, yep, I don't, do you books coming out? You have new books coming out, or you have,
So I have my one book is available Amazon everywhere, celebrating the too much woman, and I have another book that'll be coming out in 2023.
I
That's
thought so.
in process.
I
In
thought so. I thought so. And websites.
Yeah, so my website is being revamped. It'll launch in 2 more weeks. So it's going to be ginahatsis.com.
Mhm.
That'll be revamped. And you can find me anywhere, Gina Too Much Woman. Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok,
Love it.
everywhere.
Love love it. And everybody join in, male, female, doesn't matter who it is.
Mm,
Great messages. Gina gives value daily, if I'm not mistaken.
thank you.
Daily. So she gives great values daily. And so, is there, before we leave this, we can go on and on because I'd love to get you back on and dive into some of those. Just
Yeah.
even, we can just even take one of those topics. But is there anything you'd like to, that I didn't ask you, that you would like to leave as a nugget to those people listening who are on a mastery journey? One
Mm,
last message to them from your
yeah.
heart.
Yeah. I do actually. And it's a different message than I've ever shared before in 25 years
Beautiful.
is go easy on you. There's this idea that mastery requires us to be tough asses, badasses, that the only way to actually really get to mastery is by with tough love, by being hard on ourselves. And what I've really recognized is when I'm working with people, there's a way to hold yourself accountable and there's a way to reach mastery that isn't about self-flagellation and it being painful. There's a way to do it with grace and compassion. And most people respond best with grace and compassion, self-acceptance, care for self. And it's phenomenal to me to see people who are uber independent like I have always been, people who are really devoted and focused and committed to their mastery. What a change there is when they allow a little bit of space for compassion and grace for themselves, and how that actually can move you along faster. It's the antithesis of what we're told, but
Mhm.
it's powerful. And I think it needs to be said.
I'm feeling it goes in alignment with your number one, do more of what you're great
Mm,
at.
yeah.
So yeah, the more you, the theme here for you is stop, jump off that treadmill,
Mm.
chill out, relax, go to your quiet space, find what brings you, tingles your heart, brings you joy, commit to doing more of it. And everything seems to, what I'm getting, the gist is everything seems to unfold around that truth.
If we are pausing our lives for some X marks the spot in the distance, if we anticipate that we'll be better one day, someday, when we get the body, the love, the book, the success, the promotion, and most of us do that, we're living over there, we're living over there, then we're missing the whole point. That's not
Mhm.
success. We're missing the
Yeah.
whole point because that marker is going to keep moving. It's like the cat, kicking the tin.
Mhm.
It just
Yeah.
keeps moving ahead. Because I will tell you, from the top of the mountain where I've been, the top of the
Mhm.
mountain,
Mhm.
viral video, book deal, traveling the world to
Yeah.
everything I could possibly want. I
Yeah.
never arrived. It was like, when am I going to get that feeling that I'm
Mhm.
actually there? Everything I've wanted
Right.
plus has unfolded. So the winner really is the one who understands you've got to find that place in the day to day. You've
Yeah.
got to create a life in the day to day that makes you feel like you're on top of the mountain. Don't just
Love it.
wait for it in the distance.
My friends, that is the perfect definition of mastery, and that is the perfect way to end this beautiful call. Gina, thanks again. I appreciate you. It was more than, when you hear when you see the commercial, sometimes the movie is less. This is beyond. So appreciate it, love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for trusting me. Big blessings to you and your tribe. Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Everyone, you know why I do this every time and why I put the work in. I want you to be relentless about your pursuit for mastery and re-listen to this. If you know someone who may need this, please subscribe, share. It might be the right information that they need right now. So don't keep it a secret. Until next time, everybody. Peace and love. Thanks, Gina.